Very good afternoon, Jim from Avstar. It's far from being normal what we're experiencing right now, especially here in the UK. If you look at the top left-hand corner where the YouTube logo is, you're going to see the letters GB. That is proof that the government are censoring this channel, YouTube, in the UK. And, you've seen it before. I mean, just what they've done to me on this channel over the last 18 months should be proof enough for anyone that was undecided whether there was a in place on YouTube. It should be proof in itself. We used to have views of over 100,000 views on one video. Can you believe that? And you won't meet another person on YouTube that's got 58,000 subscribers and only manages to get 300 views. That is a blatant censorship by YouTube. What they've done, just some of the things that they've done to me over the last 18 months. Shadow banning, not notifying subscribers of my new videos, making you watch very long adverts that go on for minutes. These are all the things that they do to, put you off watching my videos and listening to, the truth that I try and share with other people. Reducing the quality of the videos and the audio, putting banners on the bottom of my videos from government agencies like United Nations, for instance. That if I mention the word climate, and because I've mentioned climate and CO2, you watch what the algorithms do. They'll put a climate banner on there saying that climate or global warming is a result of man-made carbon emissions going into the atmosphere, and therefore we've created this heating. But the reason why they're shadow banning me and doing all these disfavourable things to me is because I told the truth about it. I proved to people that climate change is not anything to do with man-made emissions. They make up the very, very smallest amount that go into our atmosphere when comparing things like ocean degassing and land degassing. You'll find that 99.5% of the CO2 that goes into the atmosphere are arrived from oceans and land and natural degassing. The little bit that they say that we do, we put into the atmosphere, 0.04%, they're saying that that was enough to tip it over the scale. Can you believe that? And as a result of that, I kid you not, they have raised trillions of pounds for themselves, which they've literally stole off the global taxpayers. They've stole it. Trillions and trillions of pounds. It's like everything else. And if you think that their little charade is over from these government criminals, it's not. Because we're just moments away from the next crisis that's going to need millions and tens of billions of pounds worth of government tax or personal taxpayers' money to be squandered on something else that relates to a friend of theirs, where the money can be backwashed back into their own pockets. That's the only reason politicians today are in politics. It's to wax their pockets rich, and they could not give a damn about human beings. I can prove it in just a few words. If they really cared about human beings, they would throw the anchor out the ship right now and stop where this is going, because it's going in the direction of nobody will have a job, nobody will be able to participate in a monetary system, and then what will they do with all the useless air breathing, food eating, useless labour? It's only a matter of years now before we start seeing these robots enter not just people's homes but the work environment. When that happens, you are no longer needed. What frightens me, and a few other people that are aware of what's going on, is that they are already attacking freedom of speech and thoughts and the sharing of ideas. What we're seeing is a mirror of what happened in 1930s with Nazis burning literature. Today It's burning digital accounts, just like what they're doing here on YouTube with my account. The reason why they don't like me talking about what I do is because it makes more scientific sense than what they're talking about. They're just in it to steal money off you and rely on the reluctantness that you don't know the subject that they're talking about. Well, scientists like me will speak up, and many have already spoken up about this nonsense, because man-made CO2 does not change the climate. It does not. They are frightened to talk about the Milankovitch cycle. They're frightened to talk about the magnetic poles on this earth, which are more likely to change the climate in not warming but cooling. According to the historical records in the Milankovitch cycle, we are going to be going into a cooling period. From this point out, it will begin gradually to go cooler and cooler, and then we will be in that trough, that glacial period, for the next 80,000 years. And you know, humans on this planet may have gone through that period of time many times. It might be the thing that sets the record back from day one. It might be the thing that takes us from a technological society back down to a prehistoric culture where we rely on hunting and burning wood to cook our meals on and keep warm. You think that this society that we've got is solid and that there's nothing that can break it, but it is so sentimental and temperamental, this society and this system which we live in, that it is so fragile that the slightest thing can knock it off grid. You know, them cities are artificial places to live or dwell. They're not self-sustaining. If everything stopped going into the city tomorrow, people would starve to death within weeks. If the electricity stopped going into the city, the logistics would break down. There'd be no fuel at the pumps, there'd be no electric when you flick the switch on in your living room, and your fridge freezer would not work. This is not an everlasting system, and it is breaking as we speak right now. It is fracturing, it is cracking, and you know, these politicians think that they can carry on kicking the can down the road so long as there's enough for them to enjoy in their lives. They won't be able to worry about anything else. But let me tell you something, there comes a day when their siblings grow up in a world that is different to ours right now. And that may not be too far away. We don't know whether we pass a thermocline in the Milankovitch cycle. We could just go through a thermocline from, you know, moderate temperatures around the world to cold temperatures, shutting down crops. And then what do? How do we feed the 8 billion people in our world at that point? You know, the censoring of this material and information is so wrong on every scale. There will be no historical record of the 11-12 years that I've invested in trying to inform people. There will be no historical record of that whatsoever, because they're like thieves. They rub the footprints out as they walk forward. So there'll be no trace of this channel in the future or anything that we've talked about because of their corruption. They're not our friends. They're not our family members. These are pigs at the trough. They've got no conscience. They will kill, murder people. They will allow rapists, like the worst offenders, to walk free. I could mention one the other day. He came from Israel. He was found guilty by the FBI of raping or attempting to seduce an underage child who was a decoy, an FBI decoy, and he was arrested, charged, and then let go back to Israel. Talk about special treatment. You know, yesterday we was talking about why for thousands of years Jews have been hated. Well, this might be one of the reasons, because and that's why I want to get my hands on one of the Torahs, because I want to read it. If I can get one in English, you know, and you can point me to the right direction for that, I will gladly read it. and I will bring my findings to you, because I'm sure in that Torah there's something saying that they are special people and therefore they can't be treated the same as the rest of us. I know it's slightly off topic, but Marlon Brando apparently was complaining that Hollywood was owned by Jewish people. And, you know, there is a lot of Jewish actors that seem to get all the jobs, all the roles. I'm just saying, you know, it does seem a little bit like unfair treatment. I don't think there is such a thing as equality when it comes down to these people. And even despite being treated the way there was during the Holocaust, you know, look at how they're treating the Palestinians now. You know, people that have had first-hand experience of how it's like to be treated and ethnically cleansed, you know, are doing the very same thing to the Palestinians, openly now saying that they will move on 1.2 million people, Palestinians, out of the Gaza Strip so that they can reclaim that land as their own. Why are they being allowed to get away with this? And why is the West, like America, the UK and France and all the other countries, supporting Israel in this, when Putin is doing the exact same thing and yet there is massive opposition to it? I think it's because if there wasn't some pushback from Putin, from United Nations, then this this United Nations system, which is nothing more than a protection racket, wouldn't exist, and it wouldn't get its funding. And the amount of funding that it gets is trillions of pounds. Literally trillions of pounds. And it would not get that if there wasn't a bogeyman like Putin in the room. Because they say, this is why we need to raise the money. He's the biggest threat. He's got a massive arsenal of nuclear missiles. You know, that's why we need to punish this guy. You know, you need to donate all this money to NATO so that we can fight him and keep him in his place. Yeah, right. Just nonsense across the range. You got the military complex, the pharmaceutical industries, and you've got all the other politicians coming up with left, right and centre, this, that and the other, and climate seems their big pot of money right now. And of course, they're going to lie through their back teeth. They're going to rely on the lack of information that you have to make a logical decision as to whether or not what they're saying is truthful and holds some scientific merit. They're just relying on the fact that you don't know. And that's why I thought it was very important to at least give you an alternative view on what's going on, which is more realistic. What they will do when they get afraid of someone exposing their lies, they will go after them. And the classic way they do it is go after the money. The other way they'll do it is make sure that nobody gets to hear them. Well, you've seen them both played out on this channel. They went after the advert revenue, shut it down, wouldn't reopen it, and then they went after the views of the videos. Now, again, someone with 58,000 subscribers manages to just top 421 views. Something is obviously corrupt about this. And that's your governments. That's your British government, that's your Western governments, and that's your global governments. They're all the fucking same. There is no difference between any of them. They're in it just to build the money up in their pockets, and they don't have a conscience. You need to get that into your heads. They've got no conscience. Your life is dust on their shoes. It means no value to them, and you have to realise that. The only thing they want you to do is work like a battery. When your power's expanded or expended and you're retiring, they want you to die as quickly as possible, because you're just taking up oxygen and you're eating food and you're not contributing from that point on out. From that point on out, the government is paying you a pension, so you are a burden That's how they look at us. We're just worthless slaves. And here's the thing. Why don't you, when you get 5 minutes, look up the analogy of a slave. Just ask yourself, what is a slave? You'll find one thing. Someone that gets fed, clothed, and a roof over its head. And I ask you, how many people are struggling just to have that? So, in reality, we're being treated worse than slaves. And we don't even think about that. We don't give any thought to that whatsoever. That we are mere slaves already. Remember what they said at Davos? Even though it wasn't meant as a plan in the workings, it certainly looks like it. You'll own nothing and you'll be happy. Oh, I'm sure we'll all be happy. Yeah, we'll be skipping. Haven't you seen all the homeless people that are so happy? They're skipping down the road. It's like they're in Wonderland, in heaven already. They're that happy. I don't think so. The reality is that they can't stand to live in such poverty that the only escape they've got is probably a bottle of alcohol or some drugs. And of course, you know, as has already been found out, the environment dictates how people thrive and how they don't thrive. So you are more likely to become an alcoholic if you're homeless and depend on drugs just to distract your mind from what you should be living like. They don't care. They do not care. Where do you think these drugs are coming from? Do you think that they're coming from someone's backyard? Someone's manufacturing them drugs in their back garden, somewhere in Brazil or China. No, that fentanyl is manufactured by factories that are worth millions and millions of pounds. These drugs aren't made in the jungle. They're made in factories. Professional chemists making them. Expensive equipment manufacturing them. And somewhere along the line, your government is connected to it. It's disgraceful. So you're not going to get any recommendations off of YouTube if you talk about such subjects as what we have here. You know, what are we doing? We're trying to expose the lies and their corruption and try and wake people up to it. And if you feel that that's something worth supporting, the links are down there in the description. If you really are interested in the Pulse Shift news, then you'll join our community over on Patreon. The only other thing I've got to say to you guys is you need to open your eyes, splash some cold water on your face and wake up. I know nobody wants to have their warm duvet or bedding pulled off them in the middle of the night and exposed to the cold truth. But that's what you need to do. Links down there in the description. As always, bye for now.